Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Climate Change 101. I, Griffin Cass, will be your host today, and we will be joined by expert Sam Robin, who will take us through the ins and outs of climate change.
Hello, Mr. Cass. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. Thanks for asking. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, thanks. So where do we begin?
How about you start us off by explaining the basics of climate change?
I'd be happy to. Climate change, sometimes referred to as global warming, is a recently discovered phenomenon that's built upon the mounting evidence which presents a marked increase in the average global temperature. Though this may appear to be a good thing for us here in the Northeast, it actually has countless adverse effects on both humans and animals around the world.
Wow, climate change sounds like a really serious problem. So what exactly causes climate change?
The causes of climate change are extremely complex. Though there are many factors that contribute to climate change, they all share one thing in common. They are all a result of human activity. Of all the human activities that have led to climate change, these few are the most impactful. Deforestation, the burning of fossil fuels such as petroleum, oil, coal, and natural gas, as well as commercial agriculture.
Interesting. Would you mind outlining how burning of fossil fuels leads to climate change?
I'm glad you asked. To best understand how the burning of fossil fuels contributes to climate change, you must first understand the process known as the greenhouse effect. Please direct your undivided attention to the following video, which does a great job at illustrating how this process works.
Did you know that gases in our atmosphere help control the Earth's temperature? Greenhouse gases, like carbon dioxide, trap heat in the atmosphere and keep the Earth warm. This is called the greenhouse effect. It all starts with sunlight, which is a form of energy. Land and water absorb most of the sunlight that reaches the Earth. The rest is reflected back to space. The Earth's surface warms up, then gives off energy in a different form, called infrared radiation. This energy travels back towards outer space. Greenhouse gases trap some of this energy in the atmosphere before it can escape, making the Earth warmer. You guessed it! Extra greenhouse gases trap more heat, which makes the whole planet warmer. And warmer temperatures lead to effects like changing rain and snow patterns, rising sea level, melting glaciers and ice sheets, and much more. It's a big problem, and it's all happening because we are overloading the atmosphere with greenhouse gases. By making the greenhouse effect stronger, we're upsetting the Earth's natural balance and warming our planet.
That video is very informative and did a great job of explaining how the greenhouse effect works.
Glad to hear you understand the process. As you know now, greenhouse gases are the main culprit behind global warming. The burning of fossil fuels in typical combustion engine cars releases the greenhouse gas carbon dioxide. Other human activities that produce large amounts of greenhouse gases include coal-burning power plants and the flying of airplanes. Both of these human activities produce enormous amounts of greenhouse gases that in the end trap dangerous UV rays and thermal energy or heat in the atmosphere. As we can now see, the emitting of greenhouse gases is a major root cause to the problem that is global warming.
Now, what steps can we, as a global community, take to decrease the amount of greenhouse gases we emit and thus slow the process of global warming?
There are many ways in which we can lessen the amount of greenhouse gases we emit. Some of the best include using mass transportation more often, carpooling instead of taking separate cars, utilizing renewable energy sources rather than coal-burning power plants, and even doing things as simple as just turning the lights off when we leave a room. Currently, more than 60% of electricity production is made by burning fossil fuels such as coal, natural gas, and gasoline. If we were to shift the inputs of electricity production towards renewable sources, we could greatly reduce our greenhouse gas footprint. As of now, however, the most effective renewable energy methods include solar, hydroelectric, wind, and geothermal.
I totally agree with your ideas about the shifting of energy production because I've seen firsthand in Bridgeport just how much smoke coal-fired power plants produce. However, I'm sure many of our watchers will be wondering what they can use for transportation if carpooling and trains are not feasible. Could you tell us about any possible solutions for situations like these?
That's a great question, Mr. Cass. Usually, when people think about environmentally friendly methods of transportation, they think about electric cars such as those manufactured by Elon Musk's company Tesla. While electric cars are far more environmentally friendly than typical combustion engine cars, the fuel source of the future is, believe it or not, hydrogen. You guessed it, in hydrogen fuel cell powered cars, hydrogen is used as the fuel source. What's so great about this is that instead of emitting carbon dioxide, a dangerous greenhouse gas, as exhaust, hydrogen fuel cell cars emit the same old liquid you drink every single day: water. As a global community, we must begin shifting our funding efforts toward the development of a new type of infrastructure. That infrastructure is what are effectively known in the industry as hydrogen dispensing gas stations. The technology required for a practical hydrogen fuel cell powered car has already been developed and was exhibited in Toyota's new model called the Mirai. Shortly after being released, the Mirai raised eyebrows and gave the world a glimpse of its future. Similarly to the way the Chevrolet Volt paved the way for the success of electrically powered cars, the Toyota Mirai, we hope, will do the same for hydrogen fuel cell powered cars. As previously mentioned, the only hurdle we as a nation must overcome in the conversion from internal combustion engine cars to hydrogen fuel cell cars is the mass renovation of our country's infrastructure.
Wow, hydrogen fuel cell cars seem like they can be very beneficial to our environment. You mentioned that things like deforestation and farming contribute to climate change. This is surprising. Could you explain the impact that deforestation has on the environment?
Of all the human activities that contribute to climate change, deforestation is unique in that it is the only one that contributes in an indirect form. In contrast to the burning of fossil fuels, in which greenhouse gases are emitted directly into the atmosphere, the act of cutting down large proportions of forestry does not directly contribute to climate change. Before they're cut down, the shrubbery and trees that are destroyed serve as tools that rid the atmosphere of greenhouse gas, carbon dioxide, and convert it into oxygen in a process called photosynthesis. Thus, deforestation inevitably decreases our ability to remove CO2 from the atmosphere.
I find it very interesting that deforestation is the only human activity that contributes in an indirect form. Can you please briefly outline how commercial agriculture leads to global warming?
Commercial agriculture is yet another root cause of climate change, and though it is slightly less impactful than the burning of fossil fuels, it is nothing to take lightly. In recent decades, farming techniques have modernized quite substantially and now utilize large amounts of pesticides and fertilizers that release environmentally degrading greenhouse gases. Not only do the pesticides and fertilizers contribute to global warming, but so too do the gases emitted by the livestock grown in never-before-seen quantities. As silly as it may seem, the belching and release of flatulence, otherwise known as burping and farting by cows, releases enormous amounts of greenhouse gas methane into the atmosphere, which contributes to climate change.
I never thought farming could contribute to the increasing average global temperature. Now, Sam, why does this issue matter? Why does this issue require immediate action?
This issue matters because, as far as we know, this planet is the only one we can live on, and if we continue to degrade its environment, we will ruin both its beauty and its ability to sustain life in the future. Should we continue magnifying the greenhouse effect, storms will become more and more devastating. Glaciers in both the poles will melt and increase the sea level, thus flooding coastal land where hundreds of millions of people call home.
Very well said. I completely agree that we must make a difference and change our ways to decrease the negative environmental impact we have maintained for far too long as it is. Being the expert you are, how do you recommend we go about lessening our environmental impact?
Well, as aforementioned, there are many ways our global community is able to lessen our environmental impact. But as far as our viewers and our local community is concerned, there are countless small ways we can pioneer a more environmentally friendly way of life. Besides carpooling, utilizing mass transportation, and driving high-efficiency cars to reduce our carbon footprint, The next most impactful lifestyle changes you can make have to do with your usage of electricity. Though it is less than ideal, the reality is that most of all of the electricity we use today is generated in power plants that burn fossil fuels and emit greenhouse gases. Thus, it makes perfect sense that should we use less electricity, we should indirectly be decreasing our carbon footprint. There are many ways we can try to use less electricity, which include turning lights off when they're not necessary, using high-efficiency LED lights instead of incandescent bulbs, better insulating our homes, replacing old HVAC equipment with newer, more energy-efficient versions, and, if at all possible, investing in solar panel systems to reduce our dependence on the grid.
Those are all great ways to reduce the use of electricity. The use of electricity seems like it takes a real hit to the environment in a negative way.
It seems like you learned quite a lot, Mr. Cass. I'm glad you now understand what contributes to climate change, as well as what the global and local communities can do to reverse the magnification of the greenhouse effect.
Yes, I have learned a lot in this session, but unfortunately it looks like we have run out of time. Sam, I am very glad that you were able to make it and we were able to discuss such an important topic in today's world. Have a safe travel home, and I look forward to speaking with you next time.
Same to you, Mr. Cass. Thanks for having me.